I'm out of work for the next 3 weeks. To make my life more fun, my septic tank backed up $250 to pump it. For exercise, I've been walking around the neighborhood. I'll be honest, 75% of my neighbors are jerks, but the few I like I'll stop and talk with. I was telling my friend Brian about my septic problems and came to find out he was in that line of work for 11 years. It's not your tank. Bet you a 6-pack of beer your filter is clogged. I didn't know septic tanks had filters, but they do. Brian explained what I needed to do, then spent 20 minutes telling me about the things he'd found in septic systems. The one that stuck out was a job where he pulled the cover to check the filter to find it clogged with almost 30 condoms. He said he made a little joke about maybe he needed to toss them in the waste from now on when suddenly he noticed how pale the guy was. Seems they had never used a condom in 18 years of marriage. How did it turn out? Shit, I don't know. I cleaned a filter and he wrote me a check. One thing though, when I left he had on a pair of kitchen gloves and was putting all the rubbers in a small bucket. And away we go. Well, isn't that just wonderful, I thought as I looked down. Beth came screaming into the living room, saying the toilet exploded. By the looks of it, it had. Knowing very well Beth wouldn't do it, I cleaned the bathroom up, then went outside to check the clean-out plug. As soon as I opened it, there was a gush, and I had to go take a shower. It was Saturday afternoon, and I was wondering how expensive an emergency call was going to be when Beth marched by me, suitcase in hand. I'm going to stay with my sister until you get this fixed. Call me when you get it done. I went back inside, stripping just inside the back door. Screw this, I'm taking a shower. The water can just flow across the backyard, I thought as the water washed over me about my life. Married 18 years, one daughter 17 away as a counselor at a summer camp, saving every dime for college. Thought about Beth and the growing distance between us. Seems I was even more clueless and fumbling now than when we were first married. And sex was history. She was only 41, still good looking. Maybe it was a female thing. I read about early onset menopause while I was in the doctor's office last month. Maybe that was it. Whatever, her attitude was starting to bleed over to Amy, and the hurt on her face when her mother went off was more than I was willing to bear. We were going to talk when she got home. I'd hit my limit, and honestly, if she didn't like it, I didn't give a shit. I was tired of living in a toxic environment. Clean, I decided to go out to the pub, get one of those great burgers, maybe have a beer or two, and I'd make sure that if I needed to go, I'd do it there. I was going out and saw Gus getting his evening paper. The light bulb went on. Gus used to own a septic tank service. He'd still have contacts, maybe he could get someone over. I stopped and we shot the breeze for a few minutes before I got around to my question. He laughed. Want to save $250? Damn right I would. How? I'll bet you the tank isn't full. I think your filter is clogged. All you need to do is clean it out. Tell you what, I'll come by tomorrow after church and show you how to fix it. I was so happy I invited him and his wife to the pub. They spent the next 2 hours talking about the strange things they'd pulled out of septic tanks. Seems his wife Mabel was a dispatcher where he worked and sometimes rode along if nothing was going on. One woman had lost her engagement ring and she paid to have the whole tank filtered looking for it, only to find it behind a plant on her counter. Another guy followed them to the dump station. It seems he thought he was about to be busted and had dumped $80,000 worth of cocaine down the toilet. They actually found the cocaine and he got a nice long jail term. The next afternoon they were there at 1:30. We located the cover and pulled it. There was the filter plain as day. Gus had me man the hose as he pulled it. He started grinning about the time it was halfway up. His wife looked down and giggled. I found your problem, chat. Might want to host these in the wastebasket from now on. I looked at what he was holding. My filter was blocked with condoms. 23 I found out later. Stupidly, I wondered how a bunch of condoms had managed to find their way into my septic system. Then it hit me how. My face must have showed something because Gus and Mabel quit talking for a minute. I'm sure there's an explanation, Chad. Maybe you've had guests lately. Or maybe Amy had some friends over when you weren't there. Really? Mabel, you think I'd have guests over long enough for them to get it on this many times? Or that my 17-year-old daughter is suddenly hosting orgies? No, there is only one explanation here. They spent another 45 minutes talking me down before they left. I waited until they left, got some thick rubber gardening gloves, and picked the rubbers up carefully, putting them into a triple-layered baggie, then into a plastic container, and putting it into the little freezer in the top of my shop fridge. Then I went into the house to think. Fucking bitch. A lot of things fell into place. We were done. No negotiation. No apologies. Finished. Only one thing stopped me from pulling the trigger. I wanted to know who it was. I didn't bother to call Beth. Let her stay where she was for a while. I had plans to make. I spent the rest of the day in my shop. Amy needed picking up the next day, and I had already put in for a vacation day to do it. It was the first time I'd seen her in 7 weeks. She gave me a tremendous hug and told me some of the adventures she'd had wrangling 11-year-old girls who thought they were 20. Really? That young. Man, was I getting old. It wasn't until we were almost home before she asked about her mother. I told her about the septic tank. So it's fixed. Yes, it's fixed. Does Mom know? No, I tried calling last night and this morning. Remember, she was supposed to be with me when I picked you up. We planned a whole day of family activities. Amy pulled out her phone and called her aunt. Is Mom there? No, honey, your mom is at work. Well then, how come everyone said she was off when I called? Here's the deal. Mom better call me back from a company phone, not her cell, in the next 20 minutes. If not, I'll have Dad drive me over to check. And if she blew her own daughter off for some monkey business, this little bird is going to sing to her father. I know things. 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, she called out of breath. Hi, honey. I'm so glad you're home. Yeah, I could tell when you showed up to meet the bus. I had something come up. I can just bet. Goodbye, Mom. She called me, ranting about how disrespectful she was. Well, look who taught her. It will be tomorrow before the tank gets pumped. Amy will be at my parents' tonight if you're interested. I won't. I hung up and looked at Amy. She sighed. You found out then. What are you going to do? And before you go off on me about not telling you, I found out at summer camp. Jenny, my best friend, had a cousin named Tony who has a boyfriend, Jack, who lives 3 doors down from us. He told Tony what he'd seen, who told Jenny, and Jenny told me. Well, straight from the horse's mouth then, it must be gospel. Sarcasm doesn't suit you, at least towards your daughter. I was going to tell you tonight. What are we going to do? You're going to finish high school having a ball senior year. You will most likely finish in a single-parent household. As old as you are, the judge will probably let you pick who you want to live with. I'll respect your decision. If it's your mom, just tell me you won't cut me out of your life. What do you think? I think you're a pretty clueless guy most of the time. Of course I'll pick you. I could never manipulate her like I can you. She spent so little time being with us, even in the same house, I bet she couldn't pick me out of a lineup. But what I really need to do right now is get the taste of camp food out of my mouth. I'd kill for a decent pizza or a good burger. So if you want to get to your only child's heart, do it through my stomach. I took her to the local pizza place and watched as she destroyed 3/4 of a large meat lover's pie with extra cheese. She sat back, burped, and asked me what I was going to do about her mother. She acted grown up and tough, but I could see the little girl in her eyes. This was going to be hard on us. I took her hand. Let me tell you where my priorities are, Andy. First, I have to make absolutely sure I handle this the right way. I need to figure out in the coming months how to minimize the impact of the divorce will be on you. Right now, you are the #1 person in my life. I want you safe and as happy as I can make you. A lot depends on how your mother reacts. You have my promise. I'll do my best to keep you from getting caught in the middle. But Pumpkin, if what I suspect is true, my marriage to your mother is dead. It was a surreal conversation to be having with your daughter, but I'd always asked for her input in major family decisions since she was 14. Of course, some decisions she couldn't participate in, but I tried to get her involved in everything else. When we needed a car when she was 15, even though Mom wanted a sporty little car, she went with me in favor of the SUV. I ended up driving it anyway, hauling Tony and her friends around, and Beth got her little car the next year. It was me who taught her to reflect before she made a decision and consider all sides before giving advice. It stood her well, making her a natural leader and confessor to her group of friends. You need to figure out how to keep the house until I graduate at least. Then let her have it if it helps you financially. I'm still gonna state, right? The money will be there, won't it? I rushed to assure her, honey, there's enough in your 529C to get you through the first 3 years. Even if your mother doesn't help, I'll have plenty of time to come up with the money to pay for your last year. I give you my solemn promise. We got home, and I left her to unpack her things and think. By now, I only wanted to know two things about her mother: how soon we could get divorced, and who's the asshole she's screwing. It was pretty simple in the end. All the high-tech gadgets you can buy on the internet can't beat a good old-fashioned deer cam. Well, maybe I misspoke. The deer cams I borrowed from my brother were state-of-the-art, doing a 30-second video when activated before gonna stills. It gave you a timestamp and could be programmed to zoom in on activation. They even had audio, but usually they were so far away from their subjects they didn't pick up much. It took a little brainstorming to figure out how to conceal them, but with the help of my brother, I built two birdhouses, each concealing a camera. I put one on a tree by the driveway that activated whenever someone pulled in, and the other on a pole pointing directly at the front door. I didn't need to see them doing the nasty, it wouldn't matter anyway. She said something smarmy about putting up birdhouses at the end of summer, and I told her it was to let them weather so the birds would think they were a natural part of the yard. Of course, I was blowing total smoke. What the hell did I know about how a bird picked a nest? She just shrugged and ignored them. Here's how it worked. She worked at a company that had flex hours, so 2-3 times a week she'd take 2 hours for lunch, working over or coming in early to do her work. Her boyfriend must have worked at the same place. She got to the house 30 minutes before he did, grabbing a sandwich and shedding clothes. He'd show up, they would bump uglies for about 30 minutes, then they would dress and leave, her going back to work, him killing time until he was due back. Sometimes he'd stay at my house, drink 1 or 2 of my beers, my home-crafted beers a friend supplied me with. I'm surprised I didn't notice. Maybe Tony was right, maybe I really was clueless. Juvenile as shit, but when I found out, I moved all but 1 or 2 out to the shop fridge. They were old-style bottles with ceramic caps and rubber washers, about 24 ounces full. I'd take the ones I left in the house, drink about 1/4 of them, and fill them up with fresh piss. Then I'd shake them well and put them back. I'd grin like crazy when I'd come home and find an empty one on the counter. I could have made him sick, but did I really give a fuck? About once a week, I'd pull the cover off the septic tank and pull the rubbers out. They were busy little bees, averaging twice a session. No wonder she had no enthusiasm for me. She was all fucked out most of the time. It took me 3 weeks of careful preparation, but everything was set up and ready to go. I wouldn't let Tony be there when it all came down. Nobody deserved to see a parent humiliated like I intended. I thought about inviting the neighbors, but then I thought better of it. Instead, I set up 2 video cameras and started them filming. Ryan had an old boombox that used cassettes. I placed it beside my dresser where it was barely noticeable. I tried to time it so the boombox went off just after they were naked. The cassette had been running empty tape until it hit the sounds I'd recorded. I tested this sucker and it was loud. Boom! The sound of a shotgun going off and wood splintering. I'd gone to Habitat and purchased an old door that I set up in the woods and shot. As soon as the shot went off, you could hear me screaming. Very little of it was acting. I had a lot of pent-up rage and I turned it loose. You cheating slut. The shotgun went off again. I'm gonna blow his balls off. Then I'm gonna stick this shotgun up your cheating cunt and pull the trigger until it's empty. Here I come, bitch. I bet I've watched this scene 100 times and still can't help laughing. They came flying out the front door, scrambling to their cars. All he had on was a white shirt, his pants, coat, and tie in his hands. I found his boxers on the bedroom floor later. I stepped around the house and started towards him. He screamed like a girl and jumped into his car. That's when he noticed the gift I'd left him. I'd taken 2 5-gallon buckets, dipped about 4 gallons of septic fluid and a few solids in each, and divided the rubbers equally. Just before the gun went off inside, I poured it onto the driver's seat. Serves the dumbass right for leaving his car unlocked in a strange neighborhood. It still didn't stop him from hauling ass. Beth came out screaming. She had a white blouse she was trying to struggle into, bare breasts bouncing wildly. At the same time, she was trying to pull her tan skirt up. Apparently, I'd gotten to them before they got busy, or he hadn't bothered to remove it, but she had on a white thing. I'd never seen her in a thong. Pouring the rubbers into her car was easy. She locked her car religiously, even at home, but I had a key. She was fumbling with her keys as I started towards her, before realizing it was unlocked. She jumped in, opened the door open, and tried to crank up. It took about 15 seconds for it to hit her. Her skirt was still up, and the white thong was no longer white. I stood there, snapping pictures and laughing uncontrollably. I think it hit her what I'd done. She was screaming at me, struggling to get out of the car. I slammed the door, almost catching her leg. Don't even think about getting your shit-covered ass out. Better yet, go ahead. I still got the cover off the septic tank. I could drop you in and close the cover. You could probably last an hour or two dog paddling, but eventually you'd tire out and just slip under. Now that I know all I have to do is change the filters, it might be 20 more years before I have to have it pumped. By then, all that would be left would be a few of the larger bones, and I doubt he'd suck them up in his hose. The more I think about it, the more it appeals to me. I pulled my set of keys out to unlock the door. She threw her car in gear, flying backwards. She took out one neighbor's mailbox and knocked another down. She was flying out of our cul-de-sac at an alarming speed. "Hey!" I yelled, knowing she couldn't hear me. "This is a 20-mile-an-hour zone." "Slow your ass down. This ain't no residential area, this is a neighborhood." All right, I was a big Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor fan before it was revealed what a perverted asshole Bill was in real life and what a druggy Richard had turned into. The line was off an old comedy album my dad had. I can't recall who exactly said it. I told Tony what I'd done, leaving out a few details when she got home from school. She was shocked that her old man would do something like that. Then she was impressed, and people wonder who I got my personality from. "That's just precious. You're not mad about the way I treated your mother?" "No, you didn't physically hurt her, and she kind of deserved it. Bet she remembers this day for a long, long time. Now come on and help me pack her stuff up. And be neat. You've already got your revenge." So we gently packed her clothes, her cosmetics, and her jewelry. When Tony found the sexy underwear, she took scissors and cut everything in two. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mom won't answer the phone, she told me as she came out with the last load. She's at Aunt Gwen's. I just talked to her. I guess she owes Mom for covering for her little adventures. Too bad Uncle Jack found out anyway. I'll be back in just a bit. You got her on the ropes right now, Dad. Might want to think about changing locks tomorrow. It was 3 hours before she came back. Mom's a wreck? She kept saying over and over it wasn't supposed to be like this. I think she's having some serious buyer's remorse over her choices. If you can believe it, she wants to come home. I convinced her to give you a few days to calm down. And Gwen followed me out, asking if I thought you could get past this and take her back. I just grinned and got in my car. I was still in full pain mode and had her served at work. Gwen had to come and get her. Striking first, I got temporary custody. Even though I threatened to show everyone my tape, she fought the divorce and got the judge to order counseling. I was bitterly opposed, but my lawyer told me to suck it up and play along. 8 sessions. To my surprise, I kind of enjoyed parts of it. The woman we drew was our age, moderately attractive, well-built. I noticed she had no ring. The very first session, she asked us what we hoped to get out of the sessions. Beth went first. "I want my husband and daughter back. I want to go home and rebuild our marriage." I kept a straight face. Then it was my turn. "I tell you this is a waste of your time, Miss Turner, but it wouldn't because whatever the outcome you still get paid. Don't worry. I'll do my very best to remain calm. I'll actually participate to the best of my ability. But there is absolutely no way I would ever want to remain married to Beth. She's blown it. The damage is too deep. What I expect to get out of these sessions is your opinion in writing that this marriage is beyond salvation. So let's begin, shall we? I'm sorry you feel this way, Chad. I think. Why are you sorry, Miss Turner? We're supposed to be honest here. If that's the way I feel and I'm comfortable with my decision, why would that lead to sorrow? I think I took her by surprise. Well, what I mean is I'm here to help you find your way, to talk about your difficulties and see if we resolve them. Miss Turner, really? I'm not lost. I don't need help finding my way. My path is clear, and I only see one set of footprints on it. I already have my resolution. The way I see it, you're here to try and get me to accept an alternative I find distinctly unappealing and impossible. I'm here to tell you you're pissing in the wind. But hey, I'm paying for these sessions. I should at least get some entertainment value out of them. By all means, proceed. I had gotten to her. Chad, Mr. Jones, you know I have to report to the judge. If you're uncooperative or fail to participate, it could work against you. Am I being uncooperative? I think I'm being very proactive. I've been doing almost all the talking here. And Miss Turner, I respond badly to threats, veiled or otherwise. One of the reasons I'm taping these sessions, I lay my little recorder, which had been running the whole time, on the table. Mr. Jones, you may not tape these sessions. Why not? You are, aren't you? As the person footing the bills, I have a right to ensure I get my money's worth. I refuse to let you do that. Now I got up, taking my recorder. We're done. Miss Turner, I'll be officially asking for another therapist tomorrow if I can get to the judge. This tape will be instrumental in his decision, I'm sure. Have a pleasant evening. I left both her and Beth with their mouths hanging open. My lawyer did convince the judge to assign someone else, an older woman who didn't care if I taped the sessions. Things went pretty smoothly. It was a lot of Beth begging for a second chance and me saying no. The one heated exchange happened when she was trying to convince both the counselor and me that it was just a short fling and she'd gotten it over her head. She'd men-ended, blah, blah, blah. I jumped all over her. I'm not sure how timelines work in a cheater's world. How long does a fling go as opposed to a full-blown continuing affair? Is a fling less destructive to a marriage? I know for a fact you had sex 41 times over at least 6 or 7 weeks. 41 times. This wasn't a fling. Neither of you intended to stop before you got caught. 41 times. That took a lot of planning, a lot of coordination to pull off. This wasn't a fling, Beth. It was a thoughtfully planned course of action. You guys were pretty clever. It might have gone on years if you hadn't clogged the septic line. But you were caught. Pretty dramatically, I thought. I couldn't help laughing a little. Beth went to her sister's and she wouldn't let her in the door until she disrobed and tossed her things in the garbage. Even after 5 showers, she still smelled. The debt collars got her carpet clean, but she had to replace the driver's seat. I don't know what happened to her partner, but he got served about a week after Beth did. I never once showed anyone the video I had shot, but rumors started swirling. Brain heard about it and nicknamed me Rubber. I think her sister let most of the story slip a few weeks later after she'd had a few too many at a local bar. The sessions were pretty dull. We were just going through the motions by the 4th week. Beth crying, me remaining stoic. The counselor called it in the 6th session, and 4 months later, Beth and I were the proud owners, at least in my case, of a set of shiny new divorce decrees. The settlement was quite reasonable, I thought. Instead of child support, Beth had to pay half the mortgage on the house and keep contributing to Tony's college fund. There were only 10 payments left, so it was pretty much a wash. As soon as Tony graduated, we sold the house and split the money. We got a good price, even in the slump. I took my half and bought the house 5 doors down. The lot was bigger, there was an extra bedroom, and it even had a pool out back, the only one in the neighborhood. It was a distressed sale, and I got it for about 2/3 of what it was actually worth. I only had to finance $20,000. It was like a car loan. I paid it off in 4 years. Tony excelled in college. She started bringing 2 of her roommates home with her on breaks. I'd get them summer jobs, and when they were off, they lay around the pool as little as possible. I ended up with a lot of college-age visitors, male and female. I became a bit of an urban legend. Now, even at work, most people call me Rubber. I was a department supervisor for a company that made brake parts for high-end cars, mostly Mercedes and BMWs, but also Bentley and Land Rover. I made what a lot of shift managers at other factories made. I was good at my job and my bosses were happy with me. I didn't even think about a relationship until Tony was in her 3rd year of college. Really hadn't wanted one. Oh, I had a few friends with benefits over the years, but nothing serious. Then Colette came to work. She was brought in to head another department. We talked mostly job-related, but once a month, the managers would go out to a local pub, shoot the breeze, and relax. After 3 months, I asked her out, and she accepted. There was a spark there, and we took it slow. It was almost 4 months later before we started getting intimate. I felt if she was going to be in my life, she should know my history, so I gave her the full story of what had earned me the nickname Rubber. She seemed a little surprised, then had a little trouble hiding a grin. Soon she was laughing. Then she told me her story. Married like me to someone a lot like my ex, seems he loved anal, and she had only tried it once, getting hurt. There was no preparation, very little lube, just slam it home. They'll get used to it as his motto. Since she wouldn't, he started collecting playmates for it. Colette told me when she found out, she bought an old blender from Goodwill, put on some rubber gloves, took some snips, and collected a full blender of poison oak and ivy leaves. She pureed the leaves, sifting them through a sieve until she had about an ounce of juice. Then she took a hypodermic needle and carefully inserted it into a half-empty tube of Kai and placed it back in his hiding place. A week later, she got a call from the hospital. They'd had to rush her husband there. Seems he'd had an extreme allergic reaction to something. She laughed. When I got there, he was on his back, the gown tinted up because he was extremely sensitive to touch. I swear he was so swollen up he looked like a porn star. I was talking to the doctor, and he was trying to determine the cause of the reaction. I looked dead at my husband. Well, I told the doctor he has a habit of sticking that pathetic cock up any sluts as he can get a hold of. Maybe it was the poison ivy juice I put in his Kai. Think that might be it, honey? The doctor had the funniest look on his face, and one of the nurses dropped her tablet. Don't come home, dear. Or next time I'll do something permanent to your junk. Doc, if you got a slut here with the same symptoms in her ass, might want to check on her. Y'all have a pleasant evening. As I was walking out, I heard the doctor tell a nurse to check on the women in 312. It was on the same floor, so I dropped by. She was on her stomach, her ass up in the air. It was so swollen and red, I swear it looked like a space alien. She couldn't see who came in because of her position, so she asked if I could give her something stronger for the pain. I smacked her ass so hard I thought I broke my hand. She screamed, and I leaned over, making sure she could hear me. That won't take the pain away, but it'll give you something else to focus on. I'm the wife of the man you were fucking. I put poison ivy juice in the lube. Next time it might be acidic. Think about that. The next time you decide to fuck another woman's husband, whore. I sweated bullets for a few days waiting to get arrested, but I guess letting the secret out was worse than their punishment because I never heard a word. I just looked at her, mouth hanging open, while she looked tense. Suddenly I grinned. I think I love you. She grinned back, you better. We decided after a few more months. Tony loved her and understood when she couldn't bring her roommates the next summer. We needed the bedrooms. Colette had a daughter 16 and a son 14. Tony and the daughter Joy were bridesmaids and her son Bill walked her down the aisle. It took a few months before we settled into a family unit. When it came time, Tony showed Joy around her old campus, and 2 years later, Bill got a tennis scholarship. We're a few years older now. The kids are here for our 15th wedding anniversary. Tony is married and has 2. Joy has 3 and Bill brought his husband and adopted daughter. The grandkids were splashing in the pool. The kids were watching them and getting the meal ready. We just sat, the guest of honor. From where I sit, I can see the small decoration on the fence. Colette was a quite talented painter, and she painted accents on our mailbox, birdhouses, and fences. The particular one I was looking at was so tiny it was barely noticeable. An inflated rubber with a poison ivy vine curling around it. A reminder, she says. We've never needed it. As for what happened to Beth, who the fuck cares?